Good evening and welcome to Dave's Delights. I'm Dave and I'm delighted that you're here. Tonight, which is for what is going to be my inaugural episode in my brand new YouTube channel, I'm going to make something that is one, very easy to make, two, you probably have, if not all, certainly most of the ingredients in your refrigerator right now, and three, is one of those things that just calls back to comfort foods and home. And I'm talking about stuffed peppers. So, to make stuffed peppers, you need to have a couple ingredients, and they start off with a pound of ground beef, which I've pre-ground here, and pre-browned just to make things a little easier for us for the actual assembly method. A pound of that, as well as one link of sweet Italian sausage. I like slicing it out of the link, opening it up, and then I can put it in just like the meat, rather than having to deal with a couple of pounds of loose ground. Ideally, I'd make my own, but the reality is that's not an option for everybody. So I then will take a bell pepper. Now my local farmer's market happened to have these beautiful heirloom colors, so I said it works as well as any. I decided I want to do purple and ghost yellow. So I need 6 of those. And then I need a cup of cooked white rice. Now again, you want to pre-cook this. I mean, you can cook it right as the recipe starts, but then you're waiting for it to boil down and everything else. So I prefer to do that a little bit in advance. And then 16 ounces of tomato sauce. Now, you can get that at the store. As it happens, because I've got a pretty big garden that's full of tomatoes, I make my own sauce. So this one is actually fire roasted tomatoes, because I had a lot of options and I decided to make some of these fire roasted. But you're going to use 16 ounces of this, and you're going to put it in 2 different places. If it's a can, no problem. They're usually coming 15 or 16 ounces as well. Don't sweat it. It's not going to make a huge difference. But if you have the ability to have your own, by all means, I think that's best. You're going to need a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and then a half teaspoon each of garlic powder and onion powder, and then 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning. And then we're going to have salt and pepper to taste. So the first thing we got to do is obviously we would brown the meat, which takes about 7 to 9 minutes. You cook it on medium to high heat, and you just work it around until it browns up, and you drain the excess fat out of it. And same thing with the sausage, and then I mix it all together. And then I take the rice, and you cook the rice according to however you normally do it. I do a cup of water, and I have a cup of rice to a cup and a half of water, and I've got one of those machines where it's got the elephant on it. And I'll tell you what, I've never looked back. But you can certainly do it on your stovetop with a pot as well. Your choice. So I'm going to take the ground meat, and I'm going to get it into my mixing bowl. And then I'm going to take my rice and my rice paddle. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get that in there too. Kind of grind it up a little bit and get these out of the way. And then half of my tomato sauce. It's easier with a glass jar to be able to decide what half is, seeing as it's got measurements on the side of it. And then I'm adding the tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and then the half teaspoon each of garlic and onion powder. And I'm going to get a pinch of salt, like a heavy pinch of salt. Kosher salt's what I use, but whatever you have in the house will work fine. And then to taste of ground pepper, I like it just to be so that I can see that there's pepper there. Now there's lots of ways to stir this up. I'm going to try with this paddle a little bit, but I got a feeling there's a reason why you always wash your hands before you start cooking. And then wash them again. Oh yeah, the old ways are the best ways. So you're going to get in there and you're going to really work this stuff together. Like really get that mashed up. And remember, wash your hands. Oh yeah, now it's starting to look like something. Now you can see now it's all mixed together and all the flavorings are in there too. I'm going to give it some more salt and pepper, but I got to wash my hand real quick. hey, we're really cooking here, right? So, what you're gonna do now, what I always do, just make sure all that Worcestershire sauce is in there. It's hard to say. And then make sure your sink is off. I'm gonna give it just a little bit more salt, because now I've mixed it all around. And a little bit more pepper. Give it a little final mix here. And then this mix is ready to go. We're gonna take that other half of that tomato sauce. Now I've got a jar here with a lid, so I can just do this real easy. Drop that Italian seasoning in. Yeah, just a little bit of salt. And a little bit of ground pepper there. And then I'm gonna stir that up. And this is gonna be on top for basting, so we're saving that for later as well. And one of the cool things about mason jars, and I got a lot of them, now I've got a good mix. So now it's time to break down the peppers. I'm going to set these up and out of the way. I'm going to cap them. So I go about as high up as I can because I want to save as much side because we're going to be stuffing them. And I've now taken the lid off and I can set that aside. And I'm actually going to take my smaller knife, my paring knife, and come along, get as much of that out as I can, all the veins, and you end up with a cup. And that's going to go back in. Because, you know, these vein materials, they're just not that tasty. And you just pull the seed cluster out if you cut it the right height. You don't even really need the knife. As you can see, it's a nice little container for our stuff. Out it comes. Off goes these to the side. Don't worry, I'm going to clean this up before we move on to the next phase. And that's 5. And here's our last one, 6. So, you know, this is another one of those things that you can certainly, before you do anything else, you can have these ready to go as long as you keep them cold. I found if you leave them out on the counter too long, they start getting a little bit weird. So now, I'm going to pull the lids off to the side here. Get the guts down into my bowl. And we're bringing up a baking dish, because these are going to sit down in the baking dish once they're filled. So I'm going to get some meat, and I'm going to stuff it in. And depending on how big or small these peppers are, you may get more than 6 out of your filling. In fact, you're almost likely to. Now what I like to do is I like to fill it, and this rice paddle sure works really well for this purpose. So remember that. If you give a little bit room in there, that'll give you space to have the filling, which is going to be this tomato sauce. And then I place it down. And I take my next one. Make sure you stuff it as good as you can, because you want to get it all in there. You don't want to have voids. This is just one of those things where you don't want a half a stuffed pepper. You want the whole thing. And once you get more in there, they'll stand up. Oh yeah, look at this. It's all coming out real nice and easy. And the last one I'm going to stuff on this batch. Depending on how big your peppers are, you might be doing multiple batches or just a larger single batch. So I now have these 5 peppers set up here. And I'm going to take my sauce, trickle a little bit of the sauce over the top of all of them. Now these lids are for later. I'm going to place them down in here right now, 1 to help keep these from falling over, but 2 so that they cook as well, because there's no reason why you can't eat the top. Those are all in there. Perfect. Now as you can see, this is ready for the oven. We have a 350 degree oven set up, and this is going to go in there for an hour. Now, it's not going to be the full hour, because you are going to open it up about every 15 minutes, and you're going to spoon on a little bit more of this sauce, because it's going to dry up, and you're going to want it to really baste into this pepper. So here it goes. And we'll get back to you once we do some basting. Hello and welcome back to Dave's Delights. Now we're going to go take a look at the stuff after our first 15 minutes of cooking in the oven. I'm going to pull them out and we're going to baste them. Now some people say, oh, well, you can baste in the oven, and that kind of depends on what you're basting. What I've found is if it's six roasted peppers, I can pull them out of the oven. That way I can keep the oven door closed and keep more heat in. Now my 22-pound or bigger Thanksgiving turkey, no, that I baste in the oven just because I'm not going to pull that much heat out. You start getting a little bit more, is it worth the extra effort versus just letting the oven catch back up. But in this case, I'm going to pull them out and put them up here for us to also, because we're on video, so we can show the next layer of saucing, then they'll go back in, and then we'll cut to it being a finished product. So anytime I'm going to get something out of the oven, I prefer to do it barehanded. Here we go. And I have a second container of the extra 2 where I had a little extra meat, so I was able to make a little more. So now I have the sauce from before, and we're going to sauce it up again. Fill it up more this time. And it smells really good already. You can see the peppers are starting to soften up, and we got enough left for the rest of the bastes. So here we are. This is going to go back into the oven for another 45 minutes, and then we'll see what it looks like at the end. See you then. Welcome back. Our stuff has just come out of the oven, and it is ready for final preparations. So let me grab it. As you can see, the peppers are all now very nicely cooked. The top looks kind of almost firm. It's dried out, and everything should look very well prepared, very cooked. Nothing should look like it's still raw. Now, stuffed peppers are one of those kind of things that you can have with a side of pasta. You can have it. You can have it as a side for pasta, or like me, you can just have it just to have it. What I like to do is I take it out and I'll put it on the plate when it's on its own. Oh yeah, there we go. And I'll open it up, and then I'll take some pasta sauce that I made, which you would have with your spaghetti, with your pasta, or you can just sauce these things directly. But it's the same pasta you get. It's sauce you either make yourself or get in a store if you're so inclined. And I'll give that a nice drizzle. And a little bit around the plate. Put a cap on it. And voila. here is a hearty snack or something to have as a side. Put it over pasta, put it over whatever you like. And also, they freeze really, really well. So take these, throw them in with some sauce and freeze them up, and then you can pop them out and microwave them or reheat them in the oven anytime you want to enjoy them. Anyhow, it has been a wonderful evening with you guys. I hope you enjoy the food, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a good evening.